Greater Sandton and beyond. Get ready for the Sandton Times Hour
with your host,
Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond, welcome to the Sandton Times Hour. It's edition 205. It's week 30 of 2025. I'm Alexander Leitner, and a special welcome to everyone listening. If you're listening for the very first time, be it on air or online, and of course, if you're joining us from our regular listener base in Johannesburg and Pretoria, across South Africa, anywhere and everywhere else across the continent, across the world, I'm happy to report that all is well in Sandtonland. And I'm joined by Vincenzo, our trusted sound engineer, blending everything together and making sure that we sound acceptable for the next hour. I hope you've had a good week since we last connected, and we've had another great show planned for you this week. I think there's something there for every taste and every interest. I'm off to bring you some content from beyond the borders of Sandton over the coming week, from a catamaran in the Seychelles, mind you. But that doesn't mean that we don't have an appointment every week to bring you the best of Sandton and beyond. But I do look forward to bringing you back a host of great interviews and interesting bits and pieces. If the Seychelles has ever been on your travel bucket list, I'm sure you don't want to miss that. But in the meantime, feel free to follow the fun on Instagram stories and social media, and I'll be sure to keep those updated and keep you in the loop of what's happening during that trip. It's been a busy week once again as we prep for the travels, but also attended the launch of the new Sorbet in Sandton City. It's in the banking mall. Going to be bringing you a little bit of content on that in just a bit. Then there was also a luncheon at a new boutique hotel, the Park Hyatt Johannesburg. I believe the smallest Park Hyatt in the world. They've now opened their doors in Rosebank, and very gorgeous. Go check it out. More of this is coming up on the website and on the social media channels, of course, so make sure that you always stay connected there. Who are we talking to this week, and what are we talking about this week? Well, in a bit, I'll be chatting to the JRA, the Johannesburg Roads Agency, about a bold announcement to fix roads in larger parts of Sandton. And I hear all of Sandton breathing a sigh of relief, maybe some eyes rolling. Well, you better take a listen and make up your own mind. Then we reconnect with our regular entertainment commentator to talk about a new movie out on circuit. Is it a hit? Is it a miss? Well, we never know with Tat, but we will find out. And finally, one of Sandton's popular stops for all things nails, hair and beauty has found a new home. As mentioned, I had a chance to chat to the franchise owner, who's also the franchise owner of the year for Sorbet, which is great. And I'll be finding out a little bit more about this. All of this coming up in the next hour. But I always like to hear from you as well. So if you'd like to get in touch, send through your questions, comments, and feedback to editor@sandtontimes.co.za. You can also connect on social media at Sandton Times on your preferred social media platform. And of course, visit the website www.sandtontimes.co.za. And if you're not part of the podcast community yet, well, what are you waiting for? Jump onto one of the podcast platforms, subscribe to the Sandton Times Hour, and make sure it gets downloaded to your device every single week in case you miss it. In case you miss it in one way or another, there's always an excuse and always a chance to still catch it on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, AfroPods, and so many more. So be sure to like and share.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
So we know the usual story with Sandton and its roads, and I know it's been a song that some people have sung for some time. You know, if it's a run-in with a pothole or some uneven roads or maybe a detour due to infrastructure repairs and upgrades, well, all of that could be changing very soon. The city of Johannesburg has rolled out a 149 million rand budget to give our roads, especially in high traffic zones like Sandton, a serious upgrade. And this includes major resurfacing and smarter maintenance, as well as a renewed focus on collaboration with utilities like Johannesburg Water. And joining us to unpack that and what it means for motorists, for commuters, and of course, everybody living in Greater Sandton is Chief Executive Officer of the Johannesburg Roads Agency, Zweli Nyathi. And Zweli, it's good to have you on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thank you, and thank you to your listeners as well. Thank you.
Well, Zweli, let's get straight into it. What prompted the city of Johannesburg to initiate the road upgrade plan in Sandton? Many might say, is it just the G20, or is this something that's been in the pipeline for some time?
That's a good question. Let's be honest. Sandton is an economic node. Any road that you get into Sandton with, it's usually very busy. We have our stock exchange there. We have big corporates. There's a lot of workforce in Sandton besides the residents alone. And it's more like the point of reference for us, how we can run a city. And obviously that feeds off into the CBD. A lot of people, whether you are in the south or north or whichever way, somewhere along the line in your daily doings, you will pass by Sandton. So we thought it's very, very important because the roads are not permanently damaged. It was just a maintenance defect. Why don't we save the roads rather than allowing them to deteriorate further while we're focusing on the outskirts and stuff? So we're looking at all the economic nodes, not specifically G20, all the feeder roads, all the busy roads, before they get worn out completely, we need to save them. And when we save them, we mean we'll give them a better lifespan. In some instances, yes, we can do deep patching, but in most cases, we'll also do resurfacing, which we have a pleasure because we now have our own asphalt plant. So that makes it very easy for us to resurface some of the roads. So that's very, very important. And it's a huge milestone from JRA because a lot of defects are caused by the lack of maintenance. And all these years we're citing budget, but we had to find something, even if it's a drop in the ocean, but we are moving towards the right direction to make sure that our infrastructure gets maintained very well. And taking into consideration, when we say road infrastructure, it's not only the tar. There's cabs, inlets, there's a whole lot of infrastructure that goes underneath. So some you find that they've collapsed. That's where you have constant flooding and other things. I can make a few examples in Sandton where we're busy with reinstatements and stuff. So those are some of the related infrastructure.
I know there's one particular part of Winnie Mandela Drive as you head towards Bryanston, which I see has also been affected by tree roots that are making the road surface, well, not even, but it feels like you're hitting a speed bump as you go down that road. Are those sort of the things that are part of that rollout plan as well to fix that?
Yes, it's very, very important because when we do assessment, conditions assessment, we don't pick out as to this might be caused by maybe the fiber guys or Joburg water. But if there's an uneven surface, even if it's natural causes, which in this instance is very strange, usually we'll bill the person who caused it, but now you can't bill nature. So it's one of those things we'll have to surface and make sure that the road is smooth, because at the end of the day, we don't want incident. But as well, the look and feel of the road need to determine the quality of workmanship that would have been done on that particular road. So we'll look into it, really.
Traffic lights also form a big part of making an economic hub work. Are traffic lights part of this budget? And will there be some maintenance done around those as well?
Yes. If you look at Grayston, it hasn't been working for over 2 years. It's working now. It's got cameras. It's got the latest technology. We can see you when you make a turn there at any given time. We got underground chambers. We're also bringing a lot of serious technology because when we leave it at the top, people vandalize it. So now we can be able to keep it under surveillance for other purposes and crime prevention, but at the same time, it's highly secured. So that's what we are rolling out, underground chambers now going forward. If you go through R55 in the Woodmead area, you'll see there's different traffic signals. They got different poles that are more strengthened and stuff like that. So we're moving towards that step. But I must say that we've been busy. We also assisted the provincial government with their traffic lights. Because most of them on the provincial roads were not working. But now with the SLA that we have, we managed to synchronize, and we just want to thank them for coming on board. Because at the end of the day, when a traffic signal is not working, it's not a provincial, it's the government that is not working. So for us, really, that internal government relations to be enhanced to that level, it really assisted the citizens in terms of service delivery. And we want our citizens not to point and say, this is a municipal road, this is what. There need to be seamless service delivery. And us as government officials will deal with each other amongst ourselves internally.
I'm chatting to Chief Executive Officer of the Johannesburg Roads Agency, Zweli Nyathi, about the plans to improve roads in larger parts of Sandton, but of course across Johannesburg. We're going to be chatting a little bit more. But first, a quick break.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
I'm in conversation with the Chief Executive Officer of the Johannesburg Roads Agency, Zweli Nyathi, about plans to improve roads across larger parts of Sandton and Johannesburg as well. Before the break, we touched on some of the budget, what's been allocated, what some of the plans are, also the traffic lights and the technicalities that are needed to make this happen. Zweli, what routes are you looking to prioritize at this stage? Is it major routes or is it also sort of smaller routes in and around larger parts of Sandton?
Part of this high impact, obviously, we're looking at, like I'm saying, the economic nodes. For instance, we'll make sure your Greyston, your Rivonia, and all the other ones coming from the west. So basically, all the feeder routes into Sandton, be it coming from the north or the south, or the west, because those are the heavily congested routes and they got high traffic volumes. So we're looking at that, your Jan Smarts and all the other areas. Remember, regionally, we have internal teams as well, which will be able to do some of the smaller routes in between and do their daily maintenance and routine works. But we're going to target the bigger routes that are feeders into the Sandton area. And once we deal with that and widen them and make sure they are smooth, it's easy to deal with the smaller routes because we have internal capacity.
Has the uneven allocation of spending and irregular maintenance, has that created further challenges in fixing a lot of these things that could have possibly been prevented had it been a more regular sort of interval maintenance plan?
Yeah, I think the proportion of budget allocation, and not only from the city side, has really affected that. I mean, if you look at the number of kilometers that we have as the city versus Sanral, which is a national entity, and you look at their billions that are going into the hundreds versus us per annum, it becomes a problem because where we are, we have culverts, we have bridges, we have a whole lot of infrastructure because we're in a settlement kind of area. Whereas when you look at a straight road, it's hard to come across a pothole on an M1 or whatever the case might be going to Bloemfontein. And you come across a bridge maybe after how many kilometers? And there are no citizens, there are no people crossing, there are no car washes, there are no all these other things that are making our roads to deteriorate. They don't exist on national roads. Yet when the allocation is done, it doesn't even talk to each other. I mean, I have 2.8 billion spread over 3 years. It's just drop in the ocean when they have hundreds of billions just for this financial year and on the roads that are not really worse off, which is not a problem, but we want to be considered. I can do with 5 billion per annum and beyond because I can make a serious impact even on some of these feeder roads into our system or our network.
Am I getting a sense that maybe the budget, the 150 million, might be inadequate from what you're saying?
It's not even close to being adequate. Given our network, we're almost close to 17,000 kilometers of road network, and that also includes infrastructure. So if you look at more than 1,000-something bridges, you look at KIs, you look at a whole lot of other things that we have on the roads, which needs to be maintained. If someone bumps any infrastructure on the road, we need to come and replace. And unfortunately, the structures get compromised. It's not only potholes that we're dealing with on the road. Yes, we can resurface and do other things, but when it rains like now, it was raining heavily, we need to fix the collapsed infrastructure underneath, make sure the water channels are functioning. Otherwise, you'll end up having flooding like it happens in other areas. So those are some of the things we are looking at. So 150 really, it's a drop in the ocean. It wouldn't even tackle the entire Sandton, but at least it will make a difference.
Is this where public-private partnerships come in and become quite important? I know you've had some dealings with Discovery in terms of the pothole patrol. I know you've also got some strategic projects happening around adopting traffic lights in four-ways and Sandton. Is this where then the balance of the budget that you would have needed it closes the gap?
Really, we're promoting such. I think we're also exploring better ways of making sure that it's a win-win situation for everyone. With the current setup, I think we are going big on these partnerships, And we're opening up to everyone out there in the private sector who's willing to partner with us, because this affects their workers, this affects them as citizens, this affects their companies as well. If there's no smooth traffic happening around their areas of work or business, it also affects them economically, but the relationship as well with government. We are open to such, and we did it successfully with the power connection during load shedding. I think we signed more than 50 of these partnerships in the intersections, and they were kept running during load shedding. And that's just, a drop in the ocean. So we can take it even further to see if we can, partner together and move forward. The pothole patrol relationship has been ongoing, and we have seen some results. We wish we could have more. And since then, a lot of companies have approached us. We are finalizing some SLAs and see how we can better engage. They are looking at different things. Some of them are even bringing different technologies on board to say, can you pilot this? We are willing to fund the pilot. And if it works for you, you are happy. Let's see how we can roll out. So those are some of the partnerships that we're looking into.
I mean, you've indicated we're working with a bit of a stretched budget here, but is there some space to consider new roads, widening roads? I mean, things like, I know, speed humps and speed barriers are part of your mandate as well. Is that on the cards as part of this maintenance and upgrade plan?
Yes, it is. And that we usually do it with our in-house teams. We have a pool of engineers and regional depots and depot managers who can do this easily, especially the calming measures and some reinforcement. We do it in-house. It's not much of a challenge. So we're looking into that, where we need to widen the roads based on the developments and other things. Some private developers are approaching us, and we partner and we guide them accordingly, because we need the road to be in the correct specifications before we approve it. So we're looking into that in terms of partnerships, but as well, we're expanding our network. However, as much as we roll out new infrastructure, we need to have budget to maintain it. It doesn't help rolling it out without maintaining. It will be like dumping the money from day one. So we are doing those kind of things. So be on the lookout. There's a lot that we're going to be doing in this new financial year.
So if I hear you correctly, it's not just a matter of approving private initiatives to say, look, we're going to widen the road, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that. At the end of the day, 5-10 years down the line, it's your baby to maintain, and you have to factor that into the approval process.
Exactly. So it's very, very important. And even if it's handed over to us as JRA, we also need to make sure that the Treasury is aware when they make provisions for budget. It talks to the network that we are having. It's part of our network. Once it hands it to us and the city registered it as its road, then we are responsible for everything that happens on that particular road. So from time to time, we need to do proper assessment, visual conditions assessment. We need to make sure that we do scheduled maintenance and stuff like that. If it needs upgrades 10 years later, it becomes our responsibility as well. So we have to factor it into our budget.
Have you identified sort of major contributors to the deterioration of the road? I mean, are there things, I don't know, just not weather elements, but, human elements that are also causing unnecessary maintenance that might be avoided if this was managed?
One, obviously, with the rail not working, you have a lot of unnecessary haulage or trucks on the road, carrying heavy equipment and other things on these busy roads, which never happened in the past. But also, if you look at Johannesburg, with a good 3,000 people arriving in the city every day in terms of congestion, a lot of people opt to use their own vehicles, and a lot of businesses are still centralized in Johannesburg. So the traffic volumes are really, really immense, and it's something that is really killing us, because, it's easy to get into a gridlock of traffic at any given time, no matter how widen the roads, but the volumes of people moving into Johannesburg is very high. And the number of cars, you and me know nowadays how easy it is to buy a car. There's so many brands that are there, and people are buying cars left and right for ease of access or mobility. So, the heavy congestion is really one of the factors, but also the adverse weather condition. Climate change came with its own challenges. I mean, just recently before winter, we had 2 full months of rain, and a lot of infrastructure was affected. As it is, we don't know when it's going to rain again. So randomly, it just rains without, And we have to stop. You can't work in the rain. You must wait until the road surface is dry, and then you can do certain things. And as a result, when it rains like that, things like reinstatements, they become, from a small reinstatement, it becomes a huge ditch where now you have to rebuild the infrastructure from scratch. Sometimes it also exposes the services that are in there, be it electricity, water, and other things, if they are not damaged. So it's quite a tricky situation. The weather condition, the high traffic volumes, the congestion, and all sorts of things that are there that are natural. Yes, there is also an element of vandalism where people just cut the roads and do their things without proper authorization. And we do penalize such people because we need to give you a way leave and allow you to work on the road, be it installing fiber or you want to cross something to the other side. If you're a developer, we need to authorize that. So some people have a tendency of working on our roads unauthorized and leaving it looking very much inferior.
The voice of Chief Executive Officer of the Johannesburg Road Agency, Zweli Nyathi, about the plans on Johannesburg roads and also greater parts of Sandton. And Zweli, it's been great to chat to you. Thank you for your insights, and thank you for joining us on the Sandton Times Hour.
Thanks a lot, and thanks to the listeners. We're looking forward to engaging with you further. Thank you.
You're listening to the Sandton Times Hour.
And as we move into the second half of the Sandton Times Hour, my name is Alexander Leipner. And if there's anything that you caught on the show, didn't get the details, want to read a little bit more, or just didn't have time to jot anything down, well, don't worry. The show notes are on the website, sandtontimes.co.za. You can get a detailed breakdown of everything we discussed and a little bit more with some links and some extra reading. And of course, lest I forget, if you're into entertainment news, which we're going to get into in just a bit, that's also up on there, and so much more. Also, be sure to check out the social media accounts at Sandton Times for a bit of video and a bit of photo and all other multimedia. And of course, there's also the WhatsApp line, 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866. And feel free to send through your voice notes and text messages there. Having spoken about entertainment, well, it's that time of the hour when we do that, and we link up with our entertainment commentator, Tat Wolfen. And Tat, it's been, a busy time in your entertainment schedule this week.
Yeah, it certainly has. We haven't done a theatrical release for a while on this show. When I say theatrical, I mean movie theatre. And I've just seen a very, very interesting movie called 4 Letters of Love, which is a story of 2 Irish families set in the early 70s. In the one family, which is set on an island off the Irish coast, the father, who's played by Pierce Brosnan, just ups and walks out of his financially secure but soul-destroying civil service job, and he announces to his wife and his son who's in his early 20s, I'd guess, that he's heading west to pursue his need to take up painting. So he just goes, and his departure and sudden change of direction drives his wife quite literally insane. And it's the old battle here of passion versus family duty, right? So the other family that the story deals with has a tradition-bound mother who's played by Helena Bonham Carter, and a father who's a poet, and he's played by Gabriel Byrne. He's very much a family man. They have a son and a daughter who are both also in their 20s. Now, that's enough setting up, because I don't want to say anything more, because I'm not the kind of guy who gives away spoilers, as you know, right? Now, I've never been a fan of Pierce Brosnan's. I don't know where you sit with him, Alex.
You know, I quite enjoy Pierce. I mean, I loved him as a James Bond. I thought he did a good job with that. I still remember him in his supporting role in Mrs. Doubtfire, which I thought he did a great job of. And I think he's had a couple of good ones. Thomas Crown Affair comes to mind. He recently did that one about the World War I veteran and World War II veteran and the D-Day. He's had some great movies, but I was actually going to say to you, it's always quite dangerous when you attach a movie too much to an actor, because they do have some slips. And I was just seeing recently on a plane flight that I was taking on the movie lineup, they had a movie with John Travolta and Bruce Willis. And I thought, wow, this looks like a really bad movie. And to think that both these actors have had some really stellar releases, but even the great ones do sometimes choose a bad script, a bad director, or just a bad storyline, and then that's it.
Well, I'm interested to hear that you were on a plane flight as opposed to independently flying.
Very, very sharp.
I know, I'm a shocker. I think you and I are often opposed when it comes to our opinions on movies and actors, but I've never been a fan of Brosnan's. I thought he was an awful James Bond, and after his caterwauling in the film Mamma Mia, I had actually wanted to syringe my ears with disinfectant. But I do believe that he's finally come into himself. And in this movie, he plays the rugged old Irishman who's suddenly found a calling in his life. I really enjoyed him in this movie, and I think as he's aging, he's kind of settling into a nice, mature actor. Okay, so now, without really giving away the story, some would say that it's about fate or destiny, but others, such as myself, would say that it's probably more about the wonder of random chance that happens in life. It is based upon the best-selling book of the same name, Four Letters of Love, by a guy called Niall Williams. So I don't know how much of a novel reader you are, but it is a gentle and thoughtful film. Is it perfect? I don't think so. Because, for one, it seems to have been shortened by 20 minutes just before its release, because it was supposed to be 2 hours, 5 minutes long, and it fell 20 minutes short of that. So I'm guessing that the studio suddenly thought, you know what, it runs too long, we need to cut it. And my impression was that the shortening was not done by the actual editor of the movie, because it just feels like they've taken that 20 minutes out towards the end, and it breaks the rhythm of the overall work. So it sort of rushes that narrative core from which the story takes its title, because the Four Letters of Love happens in the latter part of the movie, and that seems to be rushed. Okay, so no, not a perfect movie, but what I've just sort of detailed now doesn't invalidate the entire experience, because the movie is enriched by some beautiful performances all round, the stars and supporting actors, and also the breathtaking scenic background of County Antrim and County Donegal in Ireland. So yeah, it's a refreshing story of rural folk and their sometimes foolish, sometimes wise ways, you know how the old folk were. And it's unapologetically romantic, but in this kind of a raw and untethered Wuthering Heights type way, and not in the cheap and shallow way of Hollywood rom-coms.
Yeah. This is not an art house release, right? This is a mainstream cinema release.
I don't think it really has mainstream appeal.
Okay.
I think certainly by South African standards, it's an art house release. Do you know, we've come to a point now where some movies that in Europe would be considered regular commercial releases in South Africa are considered art house releases. It's sad, but it's true.
Right.
Okay. So I guess it would be considered an art house release, but I think it's a movie for more mature audiences. And I don't only mean that in an age way. I mean that in an age and a headspace kind of way.
An appreciation for what it is, yes.
Yeah. And I love the way that the film was quiet and non-spectacular, because I'm so tired of being yelled at by Hollywood movies. This movie doesn't do that. This movie presents you with this beautiful story. It takes you back to a different time, even though the 1970s in human history is just a blink away. You know, it certainly is a very different time in human cultural history. So there's a nostalgic element to it as well, but I would certainly recommend it to people who are looking for a movie that's not a screamy, hysterical Hollywood movie.
And also a great opportunity to see, like you say, Pierce Brosnan in a age and in a role that, like you said, he's matured into. And it's quite interesting when you mention this, because, you know, to be a young actor doing action movies and, you know, looking good and doing all these things is slightly easier. But to try and keep that going over the span of a career, when you do go to get into those, those more mature ages, and we've seen some actors who've actually excelled. I mean, if you think of Anthony Hopkins, if you think of Michael Caine, James Earl Jones, who I think only was discovered in his latter years. That is incredible to be able to pull that career all the way to your last line on a script.
Well, you know what I think is so interesting here as well is that the character that he plays in the movie almost mirrors him, because the character in the movie is someone who's getting on in years and who suddenly kind of gels. Do you know what I mean? He suddenly finds himself. And I feel that Pierce Brosnan as an actor has suddenly kind of clicked into himself. And I'm going, yeah, this is now Pierce Brosnan that I can buy into.
Okay. Well, certainly something for Pierce Brosnan fans who would like to see him at his current place in his acting career, but also for those who, like you say, like yourself, who were not big fans or maybe a bit skeptical of his talents, might really appreciate the role that he plays now.
And Gabriel Byrne as well, Helena Bonham Carter, and the supporting cast. There's no one you can fault. No one.
Fantastic. Well, we're also going to have the details up on the website, and if that sparked your interest, well, maybe you want to go book yourself a cinema ticket and watch something a little bit more laid back. 4 Letters of Love out in the cinemas, and Tat Wolfen, great to chat to you again, and let's catch up again next week.
Look forward to it. Cheers.
Follow the Sandton Times on social media.
Sandton Times.
So this week I had the pleasure of attending the opening of the new Sorbet salon in Sandton City, and this particular store is run by a very successful lady called Noni Kokinos, and she owns multiple Sorbet salons and has built these up over a decade. But she's also the franchisee of the year. She was awarded this title by the Sorbet Group in 2025, and when you get to hear from her, you'll know exactly why she's done so well. I had a chance to quickly catch up with her during the opening of the store in the hustle and bustle of launching her new space in the banking mall of Sandton City. And I got a chance to ask her, how did she get started in this business?
I used to be a banker and I really didn't enjoy it. I was the only female in my team and I didn't like pushing paper. I wanted to feel the impact I was doing in the world, and I thought, let me find a business on the side. So 11 years ago, I bought Nelson Mandela Square, Sorbet, from head office, and I took over. We only had 3 pedis and 2 mani tables. I renovated that store. We were next to the old exclusive books. I moved it downstairs, renovated it again. I bought Sorbet Menlyn. I built Sorbet Menlyn Main, Sorbet Discovery. I did Sorbet Sandton City on the other side. And here we are today. We finally moved into the banking court. We've added on hair. I forgot that I actually also owned Sorbet Hurlingham, and we created the first ever hybrid in Sorbet history. I decided to bash through the wall and create one beautiful space, which was the one-stop shop and became the new brand for Sorbet, which did hair, nails, waxing, facials, and I'm really excited that we've finally done it here in Sandton City. Long overdue and well deserved.
So you say you came from banking and you decided, of all the franchises and all the business you could have gone into, you decided to go into hair and beauty. Why was that?
Well, that was an accident. It was a friend of my husband, and he happened to be working at Sandton City at the time. Head office couldn't figure out where they wanted to go, and they said to me, well, if I can sort out the lease, I can have the store. And I thought, let me do this business. I was consulting on the side, but I wanted a business to really sink my teeth into and make a difference. And that's how it kind of, the universe aligned and we joined dots, and that's how I got into Sorbet.
Down the line, you eventually opened up all these other stores, so you obviously got really good at it. Was it like that in the beginning? Was it something that you immediately caught on to, or was it a little bit of a uphill climb?
No, absolutely not. On day 7, I caught the only front desk lady that I had in the store. Unfortunately, she had long fingers in the till, and very green and naive, I chased her out of the store, and I ended up being the front desk clerk in the Sandton City mall hours. 9-hour, 10-hour days, the only person working day in, day out from my white collar job. I was now thick in retail, opening the till every minute of every day, and I said to my husband over and over again, I need to throw in the towel. But over the years, it's been an incredible experience because you get to see the people's lives that you're impacting. At some stage, I had 90 employees when I had 5 stores, and I really felt the impact of all those ladies, and I really, you know, when you see differences you make in their lives, when you empower them and they're buying cars and they're building their houses and they're supporting their families, and a lot of these ladies are sole breadwinners and they're running households, and that I can give them the opportunity to really look after themselves and their families. It's been a rewarding experience. But no, we definitely came full circle because it was hard in the beginning.
And I think you've kind of alluded to it. A lot of people sort of see the glamour and the glitz of a business like this, but there's a lot of sweat and effort and hours and physical labor that goes into making a business like this successful.
You've seen the memes on Instagram where what people think owning a salon is like, doing your hair. Yes, I've got good hair today, but that's not always the case. It's honestly carrying boxes, you're the troubleshooter, you're fixing wires, fixing cables, fixing systems, ordering stock, packing stock, doing admin, being the techie, being the recce, being the everything. The only thing I can't do is, because I'm an accountant, is the actual nails. But I have really, it's hard work, and sometimes it's really difficult. You have to make hard choices that impact people's lives, and yeah, it's a tough journey. It's not for the faint-hearted. If you really want to get good at it and sink your teeth into it, you've got to push hard and really make it work.
For someone who's been in banking, so strong with numbers, but also someone who's been an entrepreneur, who's sat at the coalface, who's been part of, running an actual business in multiple locations, what are some of the tips that you can give entrepreneurs, either starting up in the space or trying to make it work, based on some of your learnings?
Well, firstly, you have to be in it. So you can sit and dream and say, I want to do something for the rest of your life, until you actually take that step, and you've got to be in business, you've got to be in business. So take that step and just start. Start small and be on top of it. Don't think that it's just going to come on. I literally am on top of everything, from my stock to the staff to what we sell, what we don't sell, what we need to do, deciding where a light went into the shop. You really have to invest yourself, give it 100%, and just take that first step. The first step is the most important.
What has been your most memorable moment or experience over the last couple of years, ever since you started with this business?
Oh, that's an easy one. So this year I actually ended up being Franchisee of the Year, and I won an awesome trip, and we went to Zanzibar, and I got a really cool trophy, which is really cool because it kind of made it full circle, and wow, after 11 years it was finally worth it.
The voice of Noni Kokinos. She is the owner of Sorbet Sandton City, as well as a myriad of other sorbets, and it's quite evident why she's been so successful at running this particular franchise that is hugely popular amongst those who like to make sure that they look the part and feel the part. And if you want to read up a little bit more about her story, well, you can find it on the sandtontimes.co.za. And that wraps up another Sandton Times Hour for another week. And feel free to send through your questions, comments, or feedback via email on editor@sandtontimes.co.za. You can connect on social media @Sandton Times, or hop onto the website sandtontimes.co.za. And if you're on WhatsApp, well, save this number 084 Sandton. That's 084 726 3866. And feel free to send through your voice notes, text messages, and more. As always, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or one of the other many leading digital audio platforms, and join the growing online community there. Thank you to all my guests who made time to be on the show this week, and of course all the contributors and the teams behind the scene who make sure that we play out every single week as planned. A special thank you for listening, and God willing, we'll do it all again next week.
That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to the Sandton Times Hour. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to share it.